I've heard many times a movie surrounding esports would come out. I think with Elliot Page or someone else starring. Until I just found this article right now from research that Elliot was going to be in this one, but dropped out for other reasons, and Ruby Rose would replace Elliot's role. The reasons are unknown as of now, or I'm just not looking hard enough, but for answers. But I really don't care to, do any more hard work to find out why, since I'm presuming the easy answer, Elliot's not in this movie, is because it's bad. Yeah, people really didn't seem to like this movie, but it's free on Amazon Prime, so it wouldn't cost anything to watch other than my time. But what was I using my time for anyways? Something important? I guess if I'm going to talk about a movie involving esports, I should explain what I think of esports in general. So you can ridicule me for when I say I don't watch esports. Nor do I care to watch esports. I got nothing against esports or anything. It's not my thing. But I'm not going to shame someone for enjoying it, watching it or participating in it. But I won't pretend I know that much about it. So regardless how I care about the events around this movie, I'm judging the movie as is. A movie that, if it is made for people who enjoy esports, the opening words explaining what esports is could be better. I mean, it says, with the meteoric rise of video games, a new sport emerged. Esports. You can even get a university scholarship for playing video games. Seriously. Good job. The movie is directed by Kyle Newman, who directed Fanboys and A24's Barry Lethal. And written by Julia Yorks, who wrote other stuff. And starring four actors I'm sure are popular enough if they have Wikipedia articles. And it's also produced by BuzzFeed. I'm also not an expert on BuzzFeed, so take it as I take it based on what I heard. A bad sign. Reminds me of the movie Hero Mode I saw last year, one of my top 10 worst films of 2021, either number 8 or 7, which should not take away focus from this review. It was a movie that was about video game developers despite the movie being made by people who have knowledge of video games, it showcased their actual lack of knowledge when something like Indie Game the Movie is a much better showcase about its subject, and it did so poorly in their version when you have that documentary instead. So is one of the same, or are people wrong to dismiss it? Well, the movie is about a college esports player named Vivian, played by Paris Bareilles, who is tired of the harassment from the dominantly male players on her esports college team. So she and the only other female member of the team, Sloan, played by Hera Neff, or Harry Neff if I'm pronouncing it wrong, quit and formed their own all-female esports college team, with their coach being their teacher, Parker, played by Ruby Rose. I don't really want to repeat everything I said about female empowerment stories I already said in the Princess review, but if you didn't watch that, I think it's still important to have movies with these messages come out. Just make it, subtle, or, not act like most people are unaware of this. Some people are, but I like and hope to imagine most people know better these days, and you got this movie where a character literally says, you're only on this team because, he actually says that part of the body. I thought he was going to say a different part, but I'm like, who says this? I don't know. It's just like in Silence of the Lambs when Clarice is training and some guy is like, show us your rap. The movie starts off awful. The jokes are either cringe or just funny, and with its opening credits that use fonts or retro games you might recognize, it showcases that it's made by people who grew up with video games of their generation, but don't really know that much about video games that come out today. They might have done some research, but I don't know. It's a showcase, especially in this lecture scene in the beginning, where Ruby Rose's character gives a lecture on female characters in video games, where today they can now, finally, hopefully, have female game protagonists, since some random idiot student just shouts, Lara Croft has tits, at her lecture, who does, it wasn't even it was crowded, you could easily tell, whatever, but yeah, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. So yeah, Rose even says how the people who made Assassin's Creed thought female protagonists would be unrelatable, but then shows how people don't mind playing as Banjo and Kazooie. That scene has so many contradictions. Different developers, different genres of games or age ranges, also different consoles and so forth. Also, Kazooie is a female character, and they use footage from the Smash Bros. Reveal, not the actual game itself. This isn't comparing apples and oranges. She's comparing apples with every other fruit in a fruit bowl. With that said, though, what about the rest of the movie? To be honest, it got better the more I watched it. but not that much. I mean, it's not the worst movie I've seen this year. I don't know if it will be the top 10 worst, but it's still really bad. The teammates that joined Vivian still on our team, like this one woman who uses a wheelchair and has a Patreon support, who, you know, their money supports her, and she's a pretty normal person, but then you got like the other two people on the team who's just like, well, one's a weird person, the other one's a LARPer, and she's also weird. Anyway, yeah, and as the movie goes on, I actually did like seeing these five interact with one another. Like, it wasn't the best acting or whatever, but like, you know, it's nothing great, but it wasn't that bad as we got to know more about these people. I mean, there were still, you know, some of these characters are just one note, but it was like, yeah, it doesn't make the movie intolerable, but I don't really know what else to say. It's a sports movie with the same sports movie plot as any other. Underdogs gain a wise coach who has them learn the basics, and they may or may not win the championship. If there was any other positive, I guess, I don't know, I laughed a few times at Kevin Farley's character, who is the dean of the college, and is worried about any chance people might think he's inappropriate with the students. Like, there's a scene where it's like, please, just don't close the door. Don't close the door. I'm like, okay, that's a little funny. But I mean, hey, you know, I like this minor role here more than anything I saw in The Genie's Tale, so take that for what it's worth. But I still don't know. I mean, to be honest, I saw this movie a few days ago, and it mostly left my memory. I was just been busy. I would have done this sooner. But honestly, it definitely shows that I'm like, if I was going to give it a pass for anything, it's just that easily forgettable as well. Because these are forgettable characters, forgettable jokes, a cliche story that does nothing that new or interesting, and other than maybe focusing on the esports itself, I guess, since that's not common in movies, I guess, I don't know. Okay, so in fact, you know, the game they even used in this movie called Knights of the Elder Orb, yeah, which, man, those are definitely words marketing people would come up with. I didn't even fully know how you play this game until the end of the movie, and even if I said this movie was okay, there is nothing worth rewatching or to watch about this movie in general. Also, the title of it should have been 8-Bit, since that's the team name they use, and I don't think 1-Ups are even a thing in this fictional video game. It's not that bad. I mean, okay, it's bad, but, you know, it's still bad. It's still really bad. It's just not... Yeah, I don't know what I'm really defending. It's not worth, you know, playing ever again, so... Sorry. I give 1-Up a 3 out of 10.